Hello and welcome to Audiobook Connection, behind the scenes with the creative teams. I'm Becky Parker-Geist and I'm your host. Audiobook Connection is your place to learn about the audiobook creative process and for authors to learn valuable tips on producing and marketing your audiobooks. This podcast is sponsored by Pro Audio Voices, helping great stories come alive through audiobook production and marketing. Hi, I'm Becky Parker-Geist, and I want to thank you for joining me here on Audiobook Connection. It is New Year's Day when you'll be hearing this, if you are listening on the day that it launches. And I want to use this time to talk a little bit about community and audiobooks and communication and how those intersect with each other and why it is so important when they do intersect. So let's get started. I want to start off with talking about communication. I'm going to just at the outset say that none of what I'm saying is revolutionary or, never been heard before, but it is a reminder. And I think that we often need these kinds of sort of touchstone reminders about certain aspects of the way that we do things. And so I hope that this will be useful in that particular way. So first of all, communication. I bring this up because I recognize that in our society right now, largely because of the media and some of the content that we experience through the media, is that it seems that we are often trained to or encouraged to put a filter on the way that we hear things when we're communicating with other people. Here's what I mean by that. When we prejudge, when we engage in a filter of prejudice over the person that we are going to listen to, we are being told basically, or trained to, first of all, decide, look at who they are. So how are we defining them? Are they from one political party or another? Are we aware that they have a certain viewpoint that we disagree with? So we're looking, or we're told to first put on that filter and then listen to what they say so that we can judge what they say through the lens of that filter. That's what seems to be happening very consistently out there in the world today. Not everywhere, obviously, but on a larger, at least national scale, I'll say that. And I think that, I don't think that is too controversial a viewpoint. I think if you, especially in the world of politics right now, it's certainly something that we see very actively happening. So when it comes to communication, what I'm proposing is that we remember that filter, that prejudgment, that prejudice that we are putting on communication in advance or even after the fact is detrimental to actual communication. It is detrimental to our personal growth. It is detrimental to our relationship with the other person and what that relationship could be. It is detrimental to our society as a whole. So what I am proposing, we remember, is that, first of all, the components of communication start with somebody trying to gather their thoughts and express them clearly to effectively communicate the message that they want to communicate, right? This and all of these things that all of these elements I'm going to talk about are skills that we must develop, that are important to develop, and in our schools, hopefully, these are all skills that our teachers are helping our younger people to try to develop. And we as parents, grandparents, should all be helping others, and especially our younger generation, to develop. All right, so that first is about, as the communicator, as the person sending the message is trying to be really clear about what we are trying to say, the ideas we're trying to communicate. This is exactly what authors do when they're writing their books, right? You write the story, or whether it's fiction or nonfiction, it doesn't matter, either one. You're trying to put it together in a way that is a clear communication of the story that you're trying to tell, or the information you're trying to communicate and share. Okay, so that's step number one. That is a skill unto itself that I think we all pretty much recognize, right? Okay, and then for the listener, the person in this case who is receiving that message, that idea, if we put those filters on that I talked about earlier, that prejudice filter or prejudgment of what that person is trying to say to me, then we might be able to listen, but we won't be able to hear what they're actually communicating. When we stay open, when we leave the filters off, and we just try to stay open and make our primary mission to be able to understand what the person is communicating, then we let ourselves be in a position to potentially grow, or potentially to help the other person grow, or to help our relationship grow, and to help our community be stronger. We actually have a lot of impact every single day that we're communicating with anyone. We have the opportunity to build community or tear it down. So in our communications with each other, the best thing that we can do is try to communicate clearly. And then whether we are receiving that initial communication, to stay open, or once we share our thoughtful response, then the person, again, we obviously, we trade places. Who is speaking? Who is responding? Who's taking it in? Let the information come in. Let the communication come in so you can actually receive the full message. You don't have to agree with it. Obviously, there are lots of times when we're not going to agree with the person who is speaking. That's okay. But allow that full message to come in. We might learn in the process more about how that person is understanding things, how they're thinking about things, possibly even about experiences they've had that are impacting their view of things. When we are open, then we can be more helpful. We have the potential to grow more when we stay open ourselves. And again, we have the potential to develop that relationship and strengthen our community as a whole. So that is the main thing about the communication piece of this puzzle. Now let's talk a little bit about community. As I said, when we are building these relationships, we're strengthening our community. And as I see it, community is one of the most important things that we have and that we really need right now to strengthen. We need to find those ways, find those places where we can gather with others, whether it's online or in physical. Hopefully we all have places where we can physically gather with others. That's so important. And around some common interest. Could be anything. Personally, I very much enjoy gathering with family. I gather with, we have a dance community that we are part of, spend time with my partner. I spend time with my team online. So there's so many different, and we have our neighborhood, does a frequent, not frequent, but a couple times a year we'll gather and just to strengthen those relationships so we know who each other are and we can share and exchange ideas. And that is so, so important right now. As we, I think, are all aware, especially here in the United States, and I think really it's probably a global situation, is there is a lot of divisiveness right now. And we have been, again, I think sort of trained into this divisive attitude through this judgment filters, this prejudicial filter that we put on. And the reason why I think we are being trained to be divisive is it's a way for those who would like more control and power to gain power over us, because what they do is when they divide us, then it's easier for them to say to Group A, oh, it's all Group B's fault. And to Group B, they can say, oh, it's all Group A's fault. And they so that the Group A and B, we the people, end up blaming each other for whatever the topic is, instead of looking to where the real issue is. And it's typically not about each other. So community, the importance of coming together and building community around any common interest is so, so important. All right, we're going to take a short pause, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to talk about audiobooks and how that fits into this sort of trifecta equation, and we'll be right back. Would you like to earn more from your audiobook sales? If you're an author with an audiobook, you may have noticed that royalties from Audible especially, and other platforms as well, are frankly kinda pathetically low, disappointingly low, and unfairly low considering what it cost you in effort and resources to create it. How is it the retailers are the ones making all the money off your work and investment? As someone who started in the audiobook industry in 1981, I've found it frustrating that authors keep getting shortchanged. The good news is that Pro Audio Voices just launched Amplify Audiobooks, a direct sale audiobook platform for authors that puts you back in the driver's seat. Earn 65% of the gross sales price that you set. Compare that to the percentage of the percentage that retailers give. Run promotions on schedule whenever you want. Create coupon codes. Build community with your customers, since you'll know who they are and how to contact them. Work with a caring, responsive, supportive team to help you succeed all along the way. Get help with marketing. Get paid weekly. We're helping audiobook authors who are frustrated by painfully low royalties and the barriers that prevent them from managing their own products and customers. Amplify Audiobooks is a direct sale platform that enables authors to earn much higher royalties and have way more control. We're disrupting the audiobook industry by putting authors first. Get started today at proaudiovoices.app or go to proaudiovoices.com and click on the Distribution Amplify link. Join the movement. Okay, so now let's talk about the audiobooks piece. Audiobooks are, first of all, they are a way that an author, and in the case of audiobooks, also any narrators that have been involved, to communicate the ideas of the story or the nonfiction content, right? So we have this message, if you will, if we consider an audiobook a message, then, or a story, then this is that initial communication. What happens next? Now it goes to the listener. We've already in the process had some other people involved. So that could be, although is rarely limited to the author, who has, if the author has narrated, not a lot of times do they also audio engineer their own project and manage their own project and do everything else, but sometimes that will happen. So it could just be the author and the listener. Many times there are others involved, an audio engineer, project manager, etc. So we have this set of people who have been engaged with the material, with the message, if you will. And then we have the listener who is taking that message in typically the listener is open because they have selected that audiobook for a reason. Not very often, I would suspect, do people buy an audiobook that they think is going to be expressing ideas that are contrary to what they believe. So we do tend to look for things that are going to reinforce the notions that we have. That said, that's okay. I don't see anything particularly wrong with that. I do think it's important to be open to receiving messages as well from those that we don't agree with. And why is that? Because going back to what I was saying about communication, the importance of being open to exchanging ideas. Let me build on that just a tiny bit here, and that is to say that it is a skill, just as writing a book is a skill in terms of being able to cohesively, coherently express a set of ideas or a story. It is also a skill that we need to develop, all of us, all the time, to keep developing. It's a skill to be open and to respond to that content. If it's a conversation, being able to be open and respond as we are in dialogue with someone else. With an audiobook, there are not quite as many options for ways in which we can engage directly with an author or narrator. There are sometimes available, but they're limited. So social media can be a place where an author may post something, or a narrator may post something about an audiobook that they've worked on. And then you can respond as a listener. You can respond to a post. And so there can be some exchange there, and that can be good. If you are in support of an author and you're an audiobook listener, it's helpful to them if you do make a comment. Okay? Also, if the listener is on the author's email list, there is an opportunity for some exchange of ideas that could happen. Let's say you receive an author's email that goes out, the email newsletter, and you're a listener and you reply back with some comment. That is also very helpful to the author to get that kind of whatever feedback. But that is also a private communication. And so while it's good in that it is benefiting you and the author, it is not providing the content of that communication with the rest of the broader community, other people who are listening, right? So in the audiobook world, currently, pretty much all audiobook retail platforms are really about transactions. Their goal is to sell you as many audiobooks as possible, and everything that's on their websites is typically in service of that goal. That's their call to action is buy an audiobook. So there's not a way on those platforms for the authors to know who bought their audiobooks. So as listeners, you need to know that. They don't know who you are. That information is kept away from them. That's behind a firewall that they're never going to get through. However, coming up, and I'm now finally able to announce that we have an estimated launch date. This is more accurate than we've been able to provide before. We had hoped that the version 3 of Amplify Audiobooks would roll out last October, and the process has just taken longer. It is a very complex process. There's a lot that's going into it. It's very exciting, but it has taken longer than we anticipated. So we are now looking at March of 2026 for the rollout of version 3. Here's why I mention it. When it comes to community building, which is what this platform is going to be primarily focused on, there are going to be tools whereby, let's say, on the audiobook page for a given book, where listeners who are listening to that audiobook can post reflections that they might be questions for the author. The author might post prompts or respond to questions or ask questions of the listeners. The narrators can be involved in that conversation. So there's a community, basically like a mini community, that is built around each audiobook, where this kind of ongoing communication can be focused. So we start to build community around each audiobook, but it goes bigger than that, because the platform, on a larger sense, sort of pulling back a little bit to a wider view, there's a lot of community building features that are going to be available. And this sharing of reflections is one extremely important, valuable one. But there will also be live in person, or not in person, but in real time events that will make it possible for people to gather around audiobooks and authors and narrators, and then also audiobook clubs that, again, will be held in real time so that people can actually communicate with each other just like real book clubs, right? Those are so fun, so enriching. I have friends who have been in an audiobook or been in a book club for over 30 years. And those friends have become some of their closest friends over the years. We are poised to be able to offer that kind of, experience in terms of audiobook clubs and those discussions. So again, it's all about building community, finding the ways that we can help people connect, to build those relationships. And as we're doing that, or a part of the way that happens, the building of those relationships, is creating a platform that encourages and supports this kind of back and forth communication, so that we can be developing those skills of clearly expressing our ideas, responding to other people's ideas, and getting to know each other around a similar common interest, whether that common interest is a particular audiobook, or whether it is the work of a particular author, or whether it is around the love of audiobooks themselves. So, I want to thank you so much for spending this time with me. I want to also let you know this is really important. So I'm glad that you've stayed with me this long. Currently, we have a pre-launch pricing for the new version 3 of Amplify Audiobooks. And that will only be available up until the actual launch date of version 3. So I encourage you to get on board now. It will save you lots of money over time, and that's okay with us. We're happy with you saving money. We really want participation on this platform because we have absolute confidence that when people show up on Amplify Audiobooks, especially V3, where we have all these new tools that we'll be rolling out, that it will become a hub for community building, a hub for communication, and a way that we can really start to come together in many small groups and as a larger group as a whole, really start to come together as a community in the audiobook world. We are thrilled to be able to be developing this. It has been a huge learning curve and exciting challenge for us. And I would just say, since I've been talking about communication, the communication around what we would like that user experience to be. And I'll just tell you, we started off with, we would really love to create an online place, a community, where it feels like when you walk into that locally owned, super comfy bookshop where you can get your favorite beverage and there are author events, you get to meet people, and there are community events, you get to hang out, or you can sit in a cozy chair and just read. That's the kind of vibe that we said we wanted. And it has been such a delight to work with this team to be developing as best we can, as close as we can get to that, and to create a really, really positive user experience. So it's been an honor, and we're very excited to be working with Pete Romano at Segwick, which is the company that is helping us to develop this platform. So shout out to Pete, and also a shout out to our wonderful Emily, who is on our team. She's our Director of Marketing Services, and she and I have been working very intensely with Pete to bring this out to you, as well as other members of the team, but I just wanted to sort of highlight those two. All right, wishing you the best, most wonderful, loving, joy-filled year and prosperous year and beyond. Let abundance flow through you so that you can do the good work that you are meant to do in this world. May that be true for all of us. If you'd like to learn more about Amplify Audiobooks, you can go to amplifyaudiobooks.com, and you will find that there is a link for authors about amplifying your sales and a link for listeners about amplifying your impact. So you can take a look there, or you know what? You're always welcome to reach out to us directly through the website at proaudiovoices.com. Thanks again for joining me. Thanks for joining us for Audiobook Connection, behind the scenes with the creative teams. Please take a moment to subscribe at audiobookconnection.com. The podcast is sponsored by Pro Audio Voices, helping great stories come alive through audiobook production and marketing. Learn more at proaudiovoices.com. Again, thanks for being with us, and please join us next week.